That's strictly our territory. And the rest of you stay out of it. We claim this land.
Any hand-in-hand joke belongs right here.
Yep. Welcome back, everyone. Craig and Jonah, we're here sipping our coffee because I had a really bad night.
How bad?
I was up for about 2 hours, couldn't sleep because I was pissed off in a Twitter dispute with someone about Onan.
What?
Mm-hmm.
In the middle of the night? Mm-hmm. Discussing Onan?
Discussing Onan.
What? Okay, so you pro Onan or anti Onan or what?
I was just trying to ask questions, and people get really uncomfortable when you force them into. So
just to answer simple questions.
Just to try and answer simple questions.
Some guy.
Yeah.
5,000 years ago.
Yeah. Catholics can be our own worst enemy sometimes. So here's the backstory. I should pull up the tweets and stuff like that.
I'm just gonna pull it up or.
Yeah, I'll pause it here. Okay. So I'm not going to name names because I'm just not going to name names here, but I want to talk about this Twitter exchange I had.
You can find it on Twitter, though, if you look.
Yeah, go over to Craig Onan. It's not under the Uncharted. It's under my... So, and this is where Catholics, I think the church has that moral high ground when it comes to this stuff and has a very good, compelling argument why couples should, for the most part, not be using contraception, stuff like that. Okay. I'm not saying it's not without scrutiny, but I think they have a good argument. But Catholics can't help themselves going out on these absurd limbs that I think just detracts from that a little bit. Okay.
I just got followed by a webcam girl.
Oh, goodness.
I don't know if they're listening. I don't know.
Hi.
Got a webcam guy right there.
Yeah. Keep your shirt on, please. So this person in this report, it was this Catholic World Report claim was talking about something, the destructive damage of contraception, I think. And so this person says, contraception is a worldwide plague, something far worse and far more destructive than the average loyal Catholic and faith-filled Christian even begin to appreciate. Okay, that's quite a claim. And this is the same group of people I've heard them say that contraception is worse than the Holocaust. And I'm just like, people.
Yeah, I see that stuff on Twitter.
Please don't do that. You make us look ridiculous. So anyway, this other account that I follow says the real pandemic. Retweet if you agree. I'm like, oh, okay, I gotta inject myself into this conversation.
That's what Twitter's for.
And I was pretty well behaved.
You restrained yourself for a long time.
I did. I was master of my Twitter domain.
And then you had to sweep the leg.
Yeah. I actually think I've left that conversation finally. The nighttime got to us, so I don't think the conversation is over. I hope it's not over.
You want to keep it going?
So I said, well, contraception is such a broad category and includes so many different things that this seems sloppy and hyperbolic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
true.
If you're comparing,
depends on what you're saying about contraception. You could say abortion is contraception.
Yeah, the Plan B, oral contraception, the condom,
the Onan method.
Well, we get to that.
Then
right?
Oral sex.
Yeah.
You know, you could. I don't know.
I mean,
you could even say wet dreams are, a form of contraception because you're going through abstinence for that long. I mean,
right.
depends on how severe you are, or how strict you are in your interpretation of contraception.
Right. Well, it seems to me that these folks they're trying to find and I think we kind of get into this conversation. Well, let me. So
I'm just looking down the feed. Right?
All methods are destructive was this person's response, and I said in totally different ways and at different levels. So
that's a fine way to end the conversation right there.
Yeah,
there's no reason to respond to that, but he did.
He says, "Well, Elon Musk says it's a major risk to the future of civilization." Hyperbole. So they just keep, and that got me kind of agitated. So I'm actually going with two people here, and I says population collapse and contraception are not the same thing. They may be related, but they're different issues. Most people who use contraception still have kids, right? And he said, well, of course they're not, but they obviously go hand in hand.
I wasn't sure if he's making a masturbation joke.
Yeah. I don't think these guys make masturbation jokes. That's strictly our territory. And the rest of you stay out of it. We claim this land.
Any hand-in-hand joke belongs right here.
Yep. So I said, but think about what you're saying here. It's good that people don't have birth control because we know they won't have the self-control or discipline to avoid pregnancy with NFP. So it's good for humanity that people are making a bunch of babies they really don't want.
Or support, or can support.
Yeah. I mean, again, this accounts.
Oh, I see the next response.
He said, think about what you're saying. Wickedness is better than having babies, which...
So he's trying to sweep your leg.
Like it's so frustrating trying to have a conversation with these folks.
Yeah.
I said, obviously I'm not. We Catholics that don't use birth control for moral reasons are a tiny fraction of the population. The rest of the world isn't concerned with whether a contraception is wicked. I said, you're flipping back and forth between morals and science.
So does this guy know you have 9 kids?
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right. That is funny then.
It's the one thing he'll give me credit for, I think.
You're in the club because you have more than 5
kids. I tell you, having 9 kids buys me a certain level of cred in these trad fights that they don't know what to do with. Like, who the heck is this guy? Right?
Yeah, you're a turncoat.
9 kids, and there's never been contraception in our house. So, and now, I mean,
can't even pull out of a parking spot.
Yeah,
you got to go forward.
Yep. So it's fun because I could just kind of whip that out whenever.
That's your trump card.
It kind of neutralizes it. Well, he says, well, science and morality always go hand in hand. They have the same author, and I'm just like,
oh, really? So you got the people that are talking about evolution versus creation and whatever else. I mean,
I said, but you're not using them consistently, and then that thread kind of died there. But I was just like, that stuff is not helpful. Like, you're the one that's up essentially arguing from a he invokes Elon Musk, and we have this population crisis coming, and he was talking, and they'll often talk about the health consequences of contraception, which I don't necessarily disagree with. Like, I would, if the church said contraception is okay, I would not be. I don't think my wife and I would ever consider using oral contraceptions because I think there are some significant health risks with that. But yeah, go ahead.
I'm just going to guess that he wouldn't support all of Elon Musk's moral stances either. You know, like Elon Musk. Yeah. I mean, Elon Musk, I love Elon, but, he's not the moral authority of any of this.
He's got how many kids with how many women?
Yeah, should we all have multiple wives?
Yeah. So it is funny. The trad / right-wing Catholic relationship with Elon Musk and Trump and all those folks. So, like, I don't know. So, but they want to argue in defense of the church's teaching on sort of science or medical or demographic reasons. And then when you kind of push back, they're like, oh, no, you're defending evil stuff. And I'm like, no, I'm just responding to your stupid argument. If you don't make stupid arguments, I don't have to respond to them.
Yeah.
So, right?
Yep.
So anyway, so that thread is just so emblematic of what it's like trying to argue with these folks, and not even argue. Like, I wasn't there to argue. I was there to just discuss. Okay. Well, then the original guy got into the conversation. Now I got to find that. Let me one thread that came off, and then there's the second thread that the person that originally posted this got involved. And I'm going to be very careful not to badmouth this person because I actually want to get them on the show.
So we can discuss Onan or what?
Well, I don't know that that'll be a very productive conversation. It'd be a lot of fun to have. But so the guy says, and this was again responding to my comment about contraception as such a broad category, et cetera, et cetera. And he says, yeah, but it doesn't seem at all strange to think that directly antagonizing the union of love and life should be among the simplest and most innocuous things without any catastrophic consequences. So he's kind of coming at it a little more from the moral side of things, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, can you elaborate any more on the catastrophic consequences you attribute to this? I mean, and he said, then the church has always, let's see, did I get the right one here? Yeah. The church has always condemned any quote unquote onanistic use of sexual faculty, something that perverts men and women alike and can rob us of salvation. You would like to hear more? Just like, well, you brought up Onan, buddy.
Onan's literally my name.
Yeah. He never said anything about that. Like, it's funny how many people assume that's my real name.
Your last name is Onan.
Yeah.
He did have kids after all.
Yeah. I redeemed the family name.
Yep.
So I just had, because, like, again, an onanism is a term. Like in traditional Catholics especially will just use the term onanism broadly to refer to all contraception, pulling out, all that. And I think maybe in some respects solo, but I don't know. So I said, does the church teach that God smote Onan for the act of coitus interruptus? And so he goes, and he actually responds to that in a number of ones. But so he quotes a couple of things from the Catechism, and talks about how frustration of the procreative end is a grave sin, etc. And then he says, no, but that is neither here nor there, because she does unequivocally condemn that sin in capitals. Regardless of the biblical Onan account, she did happen to often call it onanism in her official documents, if that helps. I'm thinking, no, it doesn't really help me. I think that makes it worse. But he's the one that brought up onanism, and I said, well, I didn't ask whether it's a sin, just whether the church teaches that God killed him for it, because I think that's important.
Mm-hmm.
I'm amazed at how people can be like, yeah, it makes sense that God killed Onan for coitus interruptus.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
but then you got other guys like David. He had an affair. You got Solomon with 1,000 women, and there's heroes.
Hugh Hefner lived to be how many years old? You tell me that dude didn't do it? Like,
yeah, that's true.
Like, I don't think. Man, I get so agitated about this. So anyway, we went on and on about it, and he's like, well,
so this is at almost 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm looking at the times.
Yeah, you're right. I got up and I couldn't sleep anymore. This dude, I think, is a couple hours behind me, so but finally, I think he went to bed. But he says, as long as you don't get it twisted, thinking the condemnation of withdrawal depends on one's interpretation of the Onan story. And he cites to this scriptural study who was asking about the whole story of Onan and whether it's significant to Catholic teaching and etc. And then he also says, no, you didn't, but it was a better question to answer than the one that you asked. It all comes back to Onan, whether they want to acknowledge it or not.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem the problem is that I think the two common threads, I don't think either one are real right. The one will say, well, God killed him because of coitus interruptus, which I don't think is very plausible at all. I mean, I think coitus interruptus within the context of everything else Onan was doing, maybe does. And I think he even said, what did he said at one point? He said, I gotta find it. Synopsis: the man interested in pleasing God will stay far away from such acts. And I said, no dispute that no man should engage in the misdeeds of Onan if they want to please God, and that it's important to correctly identify why God was offended by Onan.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Onan was, she had been married before to his brother. He died, and there was this Levitical law that he was supposed to step in and give his brother issue, right?
Yep.
And some people will say God killed him for violating that Levitical law, which I find also implausible and that concerns me a little bit. And in fact, the article that he cites to kind of debunks that idea because Deuteronomy has the non-lethal punishment for not fulfilling that rule.
Huh.
In an effort, and they use that as in an effort to build up the idea that it was actually coitus interruptus that
they prop that up.
I'm just like,
yeah.
I think, and I've said this before, it's been a long time since we did a deep dive in Onan. I think, he steps in, says, yeah, let me give you children, and marries this widow who wants children, needs children.
And that's how she passes on her wealth, or attains wealth. Right?
Yeah, like if she has another husband, doesn't get pregnant, maybe she's viewed as infertile, and maybe she can't find a husband at that point in time. Like I think that whole package of what Onan did is so different from, let's say, a loving married couple that decides to engage in coitus interruptus to stop having kids after 10 kids or whatever the case may be, right? I just like, so that whole, so I think that there is probably a lesson from Onan, but everyone gets it wrong because they all have this little agenda. One wants to like make it not about coitus interruptus at all, and the other wants to make it all about that. And I think they're both kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But it was just shocking to me to have this person is not a schmuck. This guy is, I'm not going to say what he's retired, but far smarter and better educated and more intelligent than me, probably. I'm just like, these are not compelling arguments. They're not even compelling to fellow Catholics. They're sure the heck not compelling to non-Catholics.
It is hard to believe that he was killed for that when it literally happens every time or every day.
We should be waking up to a bloodbath in this country every single day.
If people did start dying for pulling out, it would stop.
Yeah, I would think so.
I feel pretty confident in that.
I mean, at a bare minimum, in this, some people are going to not like the way I say this, but I'm like, if that's really what happened, it sort of makes God, I don't know, look a little vindictive and unpredictable, because like, how do we know? Like, he just ran and leave a message for Onan, and then he like lets everyone else get away with it all the time. I mean, I don't think that's a real great explanation either.
And it's hard to believe that Onan was the first guy to do it.
Yeah. But it shows that people have been trying to do this since the beginning of time, because these guys like to talk about contraception, which is kind of a modern phenomenon, as the end of civilization. I'm like, people have been using crocodile dung and all kinds of stuff for a long, long time.
Yep.
So, and again, I'm not here to say that contraception and birth control is good or isn't damaging, but to just get so extreme and hyperbolic about it, I just find so ridiculous and unhelpful. I think it detracts from our moral authority on this issue.
But if the story of Onan had never been told, what would our rules look like?
Well, I asked that, and he hasn't answered that. I'm like, he's basically saying, well, the church would still teach it's wrong, even if that story didn't happen. I'm like, would we still call it Onanism? Kind of a weird name. Like,
that's funny.
Like, and I said, like, I don't think any reasonable person can say that the church's teaching isn't derived in some respect, if maybe a great respect, from that reading of Story of Onan.
It always goes back to it.
I think so. And in this article points to the fact that sort of in because I think Pope Pius the 10th, was it, or whichever one wrote Casti Connubii in the 30s, specifically referenced the sin of Onan in there.
Mhm.
And then I think in Humani Vitae, they cited Casti Connubii, but kind of left out the reference to Casti Connubii. And like in the Catechism, they've done the same thing where they kind of make passing reference to it, but they don't directly cite to the Story of Onan. And I'm thinking, yeah, someone realized this looks kind of crazy, I think.
Mhm.
But you can't just like, oh, let's stop talking about it anymore and pretend it isn't baked into the.
Yeah.
I don't know how you do that.
And I do think that if Onan's story had never been told, there still would be a ban on contraception, because I think everybody knows that children are good. I don't know about the other acts or how that would look.
Well, I
because
think
chemical contraception is one thing, but other acts or pulling out, I don't know.
I think that at a bare minimum, it would treat the issue a little more circumstantially and say, okay, people that are using, contraception to be able to have sex before marriage and not get pregnant,
Mm-hmm.
and that's one problem, right? The couple that goes into marriage and decides I'm never having children because they use contraception, I think that's a different problem than,
that's probably the realm of Onan right there. Like that's
right
where it's
right,
you're
and that's
doing something that's disordered, and
right.
that
Yeah, with a pretty obvious selfish intent and all that. But then you have everyone else that just like, hey, I'd like to have 3 kids and not 10 kids or 15 kids or 5 or
because
6.
you don't have the time or
Yeah.
money or energy to support all the kids.
Yeah, and most Catholics recognize that the church does allow couples to space children out and to delay getting pregnant
Mm-hmm.
for good reasons.
Nobody's forced to have sex unless you're
Yeah,
married to a
so
marital debt sort of person.
So I think the Story of Onan kind of makes it this black and white, it's always wrong, and he uses, Onan, I think, is an extreme situation that's very different than the modern
Mm-hmm.
Catholic couple that's, whatever, or non-Catholic couple. And it just prevents us from having any kind of a nuanced discussion about that I think would be helpful.
Leave Onan out of this.
Yeah, just like, good grief, people. But they keep bringing it up, and I'm like, all right, you're going to make me.
Don't make me do this.
Don't make me do this. Don't make me do this at 2:00 in the morning when I'm trying to sleep and I got a podcast to record next morning.
It is funny. He went to Onan.
Dang it.
Like, that's your trigger word.
Yeah.
You need a trigger warning.
It is. And this guy especially kind of annoyed me because he's, like I said, he's not a schlep.
Schlep.
Schlep?
Sure.
Schlep.
It's early. You've been fighting on Twitter all night.
Yeah, I'm a keyboard warrior. I can't talk in the morning. My coffee hasn't gotten into my bloodstream yet, but just like that, and that here's the problem. I come in and I ask these questions, and yeah, maybe I'm kind of a little antagonistic about it, but I think these are legitimate questions that we as Catholics ought to be able to ask. And the people just circle the wagons, and then they start making these ridiculous statements. I'm like, you are not helping the cause. I don't think you are making this less persuasive to me than it is. And I'm not using, like, that's what's so maddening about it. I'm not advocating for birth control. I will continue to discourage most people, if not all people, from using birth control, even if the church changed its position on it. But that doesn't mean we can't like entertain reasonable questions and things about this stuff and unpack it a little bit. Can we not at least ask?
I would think it'd be okay to ask.
If the 38th chapter of Genesis never existed, would everything look the same? I don't know.
think it would be exactly the same.
I can't imagine it would be. And it could look very, very different. And so
kind of the butterfly effect.
It is. I was thinking the exact same thing. Kind of figure out how to make that an AI thing. Onan as a butterfly.
Oh gosh, AI isn't gonna know who Onan is.
Yeah, that's
Suppose
gonna
you
be
could have a
testing.
butterfly pulling out, maybe. I don't know.
All right.
All right. Well,
Well,
we'll leave you with that thought, maybe. I don't know. I'm just kidding.
I don't know what the thumbnail is going to look like, but this episode is going out today, so I don't have a ton of time to get that ready. But I just had it, man. I had to get that off my chest because it just, man, that grinds my gears.
Do you feel better now?
I feel a little better.
That's good.
Jonah came in and he had to vent a little bit. He had to frustrate.
That happens sometimes.
Frustrate about something that I wish we could record. But,
typically, my wife frustrating.
Yeah.
But today was me.
Yeah. So here's our frustration and venting and stuff. So anyway, well, it was good. We haven't talked about Onan in a little bit, and so needed to get that out there and share your comments below. I'm
Yep.
sure people have strong feelings about Onan.
Let us know how you feel about Onan. Yeah.
That's right. All right. Thank you, Coffee. Thank you, Jonah. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And until next time, everyone.
Bye.
Have a good one.